Hi, everybody. This is day 1101. 1101 days since Richard vanished from the barracks there at Fort Bliss in El Paso, Texas. And he didn't just vanish, lots happened. Lots happened. And um, so, yesterday, the last couple days, it's been really uh, insightful to know that the chief of security for Fort Bliss, the director of emergency services, Thomas Kane, also um, teacher at Park University there on Fort Bliss, wrote a letter just days after he retired from the position after 15 years. Um, the last 3 years, he's overseen the investigation, has been part of the investigation into our son's disappearance. And he says that Fort Bliss is working outside of the law, that they're criminal, and that they use retaliatory actions against, against a key witness in our son's case. That absolutely is criminal. It is an obstruction of justice, and it also denies us due process. So, but it also betrays the American people. It betrays every volunteer son and daughter that joins. To know that the leadership at Fort Bliss is working outside of the law and doesn't have our soldier 6, is not looking out for their health and welfare, is not going to protect them even on a supposedly most secure military installation in the United States, in the world, right? This is Fort Bliss. This is Fort Bliss right there on the border. It's huge. Land mass, it is the largest military installation in the military. That's what I've been told. And even Lieutenant General Bernabe told me about that because he had a helicopter ride over what he was supposed to care for, what he was supposed to lead. And um, and they've betrayed us. They've absolutely betrayed us. So I'm going to go on Facebook to make sure everybody can see me and hear me. You can ask questions because I also just released something else that we received today. Um, I was not joking when I said that we have an alliance now, that we have intel from inside of Fort Bliss now. I was not lying about that. And God has provided us with evidence. Once again, we have so much evidence. The iceberg is huge, and there's more coming. There's more coming. So, and we have so much. I've had to get extra drives. I've had to make sure that many different key people have all of this information to protect ourselves, to protect this case, because this case is no longer just about Richard. I mean, it is very much about Richard, but it's not just about Richard. And it's also about us, not just about us, because they illegally searched our home without a warrant with the Fugitive Apprehension Unit. It's not just about us anymore. It's not just about Richard anymore, even though those are really horrific. Um, but it is also about our military, our service members who have been, and it seems for many years, been betrayed by the leadership that are up to no good, okay, that have been compromised, that have no real intention of looking after our most valuable assets, and defend the Constitution, the land, and the people. When you hear the word Constitution, I've always said, um, to whoever I'm teaching in homeschool, my own children, you need to just think the land and the people. Okay, that's their duty, is to protect the land and the people, so that we can have our property and our pursuit for happiness, our pursuit to work and live. And that's what the military is there for. They work for us. That's what they're supposed to be doing. But we've been betrayed. And let's see if I'm on here. I don't see me. Let me see if I... It's been a pretty crazy day. We're burning the midnight oil. We are burning the midnight oil, and we will do that. Oh, I am there. Okay. And I do apologize for coming on so late, but it couldn't be helped. This takes a lot of effort. We don't have a large staff. You know, we depend, and we have depended on the military that made promises to our son, right? With all the recruiting, with all of the UCMJ. They've made promises. And we depended on them to keep their promises. But they haven't done that. They have broke their promises. They broke the covenant. You know what happens when you break a covenant? You lose the job, right? You get fired. You lose the privilege of defending the Constitution, which is a privilege. Because when you are put in that position, the American people give you everything. They give you the trust of the land, of the people, of their most valuable assets. And so they give you large staffs. They give you transportation. They give you the installations, the huge military installations that are vast all over the world. They give you vacation privileges, retirement privileges. You work for them, and they are very, very good to you. And what has happened is they have forgotten, and they've betrayed, and they are compromised, and they've sold out, and we have proof of that. So in my hand right now, and I'm going to hold it up, is yeah, I'm just going to fold this over. How am I going to do this? Some of this stuff, yeah, this is good enough. Okay, so right here is Leilani Hart's signature. Let me see. I want to make sure I do my due diligence. Yeah, it's her signature. Okay. So what she did is on the 22nd of July 2020, she submitted a complaint, a criminal complaint affidavit to the CID, and it turned into an FBI complaint. And we have those numbers of the CID and FBI complaint numbers that that lead to this. This is what this is all about. And there are 5 pages here. And they are pretty sensitive. They are vile and vulgar. I will tell you that. They make you sick physically, mentally when you read through them. But I want to take the time. You can imagine, because I've been talking about this and I posted them, so you can read the first page and let that sink in. But I want to really talk about the legal ramifications of this evidence that we have, this hard evidence that we have. Because this has been going on for a long time. This is not anything new. Matter of fact, on page 2 of the 5 pages, it talks about we were stationed there from 1990 to 1993 when an assault happened in our family. Okay, I added that. I will put this up, but I think that first page is enough for now, and to see the signature, I think it's enough to get the point across that there is a law for some and a law for others. And you see that with Hunter Biden's case. You see that with the Clintons' case years ago. I mean, I'm old enough to know the different cases and what they got away with, easily got away with. And it's all over the news right now. And you see what Hunter might, I don't know, I think the people are starting to demand justice. So we'll see what happens in Hunter Biden's case. But we absolutely know that there's a law for some and then another law for others. And for Richard, he was absolutely hammered, smoked for nothing, for being a whistleblower. I shouldn't say for nothing, for being a whistleblower. For being a whistleblower to Child Protective Services and also to CID. And isn't it convenient that Leilani Hart, the very person that submitted this criminal complaint affidavit on the 22nd of July, 2020, a day before Richard went missing, or maybe, yeah, that very person has conflicts of interest within the CID, having an affair with CID Special Agent Tavita Nusa, right? That wasn't from me, y'all. That wasn't from me, okay? I'm just telling you what has been confirmed, because he has lost his badge since. But also to have conflict of interest within the CPS, within the JAG, within the with Thomas Kane, with the security, the main security there at Fort Bliss, the director of emergency services, to have conflict of interest with the command, to have that connection with Major General Clem Coward. And so isn't it convenient when you have those connections? And I'm sure hearing it from James Hart's mouth, the situation around these complaints, that he knew the JAG well also. Oh, yeah, I forgot JAG. And Robert Shook, Judge Robert Shook, that would oversee the probable cause affidavits and the warrants in Richard's case. He's been replaced just this month, I think. He had to leave. He had to exit. Why? So I think it's just very convenient, but I think we're shaking things up. I think we're shaking things up. I think they are starting to realize that we love our son, that we made promises to our son, and we are his greatest advocates, and we want to know what happened to him. And he is presumed murdered at this time by, you know, and we want his remains. We want his remains, and we want justice for Richard. Not to be vengeful. This is not about malice. I don't, that's just not how I operate. But you do it because it's the right thing to do. And I've had in my classes people ask me, why was Jesus baptized? Why was Jesus baptized by John the Baptist? And I said, for righteousness' sake. Isn't that what he said? He said, for righteousness' sake. Because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. And justice for Richard, demanding his remains be brought home, is the right thing to do. To walk away from this and let the child abuse, the child rape, the child sex trafficking, the child pornography, the weapon smuggling, the illegal LLC investment deals, the illegal, I think, export-imports, the illegal weapons, well, I should say equipment sales, the narcotics, all of this not carelessness that comes from that kind of criminal syndicate where they spend their days, maybe in other people's beds instead of earning their wages. With these sex cults, maybe they spend it trying to groom our young people instead of training them to esprit de corps, training them to the Medal of Honor ethos, training them to defend our country. And, so where do you go from here? You make a decision to stand firm or to give in to these people that are up to no good. And still from you while doing it, because they're not giving you what the deal is, right? You've made a deal. They are supposed to defend the Constitution, the land, and the people. They're not fulfilling their deal, but they still demand the pay. They still demand the retirement. They still demand the respect, the beautiful uniforms, the beautiful ribbons, the beautiful stars, the large staffs. We don't have a large staff. So we're burning the midnight oil because we have been appointed. They told us you have to bring us leads, and now we've brought them leads, and we'll see what they do with it. we've brought them leads the whole time. And, I don't know how long the American people will determine how long this will go on, that they don't do the right thing. But I, for one, will be on the front line. And I hope a lot of Americans will join us. Rob and I will be on the front lines saying we need to do what is right. We need to do what is right, even though we have to burn the midnight oil. We have to do what is right for our service members, because our service members right now are serving under generals and flag officers, 4-star generals and admirals and flag officers that are up to no good. Look at Lieutenant General Bernabe. He absolutely obstructed justice. This complaint that clearly implicates First Lieutenant Dallas Hart, who, yeah. This complaint came in on the 22nd of July, 2020. Absolutely, Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe received this complaint. Our key witness that connected the dots, right? Reporting Leilani Hart in January of 2022. Why didn't they call him in to question him? Why did they just start retaliation like they did with Richard? Clearly, they started retaliation. Why did they do that? And why didn't Lieutenant General Bernabe, who, would charm up to us and give us these false promises and break those promises, that, he was going to have a media post every month for Richard until he was found. Why? And that they were going to contact us. They were not going to let that happen again, that we wouldn't be contacted. And yet that's exactly what happened, because they did not notify us about Leilani Hart's criminal complaint affidavit that implicates First Lieutenant Dallas Hart as not having good character. And they did not notify us of the key witness to bodily harm admission that connects Leilani Hart with Richard's case. Things were off. They should have notified us. And when we put in for an open records request, because if Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe knew about James Hart, Leilani Hart, and First Lieutenant Dallas Hart working on Fort Bliss, okay? Working on Fort Bliss. They had to have passes, and those passes had to come from Thomas Kane. And Thomas Kane, too busy doing other things than concentrating on his job and his duty and his earning his paycheck. And I don't want, I'm very appreciative of his letter. I really am. But and I'm trying to stay very calm in this. It is so difficult It's so difficult because the betrayal is so great. Little kids, y'all, God's children are not for sale. And yet, we have 85,000 unaccounted for minors on Fort Bliss because the security was lax. We have a 14-year-old girl living in the barracks being prostituted at night because the security is lax. We have surveillance footage that is missing and tampered with because the security is lax. We have a missing soldier that there's all kinds of evidence of foul play because the security is lax. And yet, instead of doing the right thing, they conduct a smear campaign against my son. And I'm supposed to be very calm. It's very difficult, y'all, because Richard did just an amazing thing. He stood up to them and he made those Child Protective Service complaints because he knew that children have value and that we are obligated to care for our children, that we are obligated to watch out for our children. And we have a whole society that has agency after agency built on that, including the Child Protective Services, which has become infiltrated. We have the connections. It's so sad. We have the emergency intake connections. And it's so sad. Because they're up to no good. And so, of course, Richard, there's foul play. Of course, he was murdered. Of course he was. 1,101 days. You have Fort Bliss command greenlighting the lax security, the corrupt security, the compromised security of Fort Bliss. You have the command, and I'm talking about the general that came before Bernabe. What was his name? White. Oh my gosh. Anyway, my husband will tell me. And then Lieutenant General Bernabe. We have, of course, Major General Clem Coward. We have now Major General Eisenhower obstructing justice by not doing what is right. See, because in their book, what is right is what is right for them. But that's wrong because they took an oath. They made a deal. They made a covenant. They raised their hand. And they are legally bound to care for our soldiers, to follow UCMJ, to defend the Constitution, the land, and the people. And that is why, since they, feel like they have a different law, that they can break whatever covenant they make, whatever promises they make, whatever oaths that they make, that they don't care, then they need to be stripped from the uniform, from their privileges, from their pay, from their ribbons and their ranks. We need to have accountability here. Because if we don't, more people are going to get hurt. More and more people are going to get hurt, and it is going to spiral out of control down into the depths, into the darkness, where there's going to be way more gnashing of teeth and crying out and wailing, because we're going to lose our country. We're going to lose our country. And we're just, I think, so many people are living in this fog that they can think that they can just be selfish, self-serving, join these sex cults, whatever, and that there's no ramifications for it. But, actions have consequences. And I'm not willing to give up on my country. I won't give up on my son, even though I know that he's been murdered. I want his remains, and I want justice for him. And I hope that you take the time out to read this and, sit down, say a prayer before you read Leilani Hart's criminal complaint affidavit. Say a prayer before it, and say a prayer after it, and say a prayer during it. Christ over me, Christ under me, Christ around me, Christ in front of me, Christ in back of me. Isn't that St. Patrick? You have to surround yourself with goodness and hope and all the virtues that God gives us that come only from God to get through the vile and the vulgar and the vice. Because what you read in Thomas Caine's letter and what you read in this criminal complaint is not the whole story, okay? There's a lot more to the story. And that's what we're going to try to uncover, because we've been made the chief investigators of our son's case. We've been made the media of our son's case. We have been made the advocate for Richard, of course, and more. You name it. We've been doing it. So we just want to thank everyone for their patience of 1,101 days. And we're going to keep going, and hold on to your seats, because we have the general now being investigated by the Inspector General. We got a message today about that. And I don't know if that's just him kicking the can. I don't know. We'll see. Because don't forget, the Inspector General is Lieutenant General Donna Martin. Okay? Lieutenant General Donna Martin is the general that came for the staged task force find Richard Halliday out of uniform, without an no operational order from her. She just winged it. She winged it unofficially. It was just to placate us. And she wanted to act real friendly, so she put the chair in the middle of the room and sat on the chair like an Indian. I kid you not, cross-legged like an Indian. And wanted to hear about Richard. But you see, at that time, we gave them that there were leaks. We knew things were stinky, and we presented that there. And we brought witnesses with us, thank God. And so we have the notes. And all of those law enforcement agencies were behind the back being fed a false narrative about Richard. And we have debunked all of that. Not because we were like, oh no, Richard wouldn't do anything like that. No, because the allegations against him were so insane. You know, they were just absolutely insane. There's no physical possibility, no monetary possibility, no maturity possibility for any of it. And we looked into it all. And one by one, he never pleaded guilty for anything. Um, there's no record. He has no record. He has no record at all. Matter of fact, he's so clean that the retaliation that they committed against him, like a waterless waterboarding, that's my good friend. She's awesome. She goes, oh my gosh, they waterless waterboarded him continuously and severely. Well, those actions have been scrubbed from his file. The retaliations have been scrubbed. We even had a petition because it was so clear to every one of us. And you have to understand, my husband is a 30-year Army veteran. Okay? He knows the Army. Our wonderful friend, very close to Richard. Matter of fact, Richard's godmother, 40-year veteran, serving under 7 four-star generals. Very close to 7 four-star generals. Lots of flag officers. We have my father. Rest in peace, Dad. Miss you. 23 years service as an NCO. My father-in-law, also over 23 years service as an NCO in the Air Force. And we have many connections from that because our lives have been connected with the service. And every last one of them said, oh my gosh, they retaliated against him. So we had a petition to rescind the retaliation. And they called us like crazy or whatever. But you know what? They scrubbed that retaliation from Richard's file without telling us. And then they promoted him twice in December of 2022 and again in April 2023. Yeah, it's that is without telling us. That's the real thing again, the lack of communication, the lack of transparency, the lack of what is going on. And so, of course, we would like to know what his designation is right now because we think that it's deceased. Legally, it's deceased. That's what we think. But he is known to be the Vanessa Guillen first absent soldier and whistleblower, of course. He's a whistleblower. Do you think that they told us that? No, we had to find that out. We had to find that out that he was a whistleblower. And they tried to hide it and manipulate it. I can't tell you how many times we're like, he made IG complaints. And they're like, no, he didn't make IG complaints. No, because he made CID complaints. But they didn't want to give us anything, you see, because they were hiding the fact that Richard had been murdered, brutally murdered and dismembered. And when our key witness came into this to say it involves Lonnie Hart, they didn't want to talk to him. And they started a campaign to retaliate against him also. So criminal. And so this is definitely a battle for the service members, because don't forget that Major General Donna Martin, who's IG, who it's her office that's going to be investigating the General Eisenhower, this case, however they do it. It's going to be interesting. She couldn't do anything what she did in this case without the blessing of General McConville, without General Garrett. So always remember, it's these 44 four-star generals. And I want to play something for you today that shares that. Because this is not from me. I want everyone to understand that this is not from me. This is something that people that really have been investigating what's going on in our military today have discovered what's going on. So here it is, and I know everyone's, oh my gosh, why are you playing him? But this is the truth, and this is amazing.
Has basically told Tuberville, we're not negotiating at all. It's either our way or the highway. Tuberville's a hero here. Tuberville, one man alone. So Mr. Smith goes to Washington. And Frank Gaffney and the team on the Committee for the Present Danger, because Frank, and you and I had a lot of conversations about this. I said, Frank, we got to pick our battles. And you said, Steve, I think this is one we could show the whole problem by going after it. And I give a hat tip. You guys, General Scott was not confirmed. They got ready to leave town. They were going to have the vote. The vote was canceled. You know why the vote was canceled? They can put a lot of different excuses on it. The vote was canceled because the vote's radioactive. And that's because Frank Gaffney and the team over at his organization, the Committee on the Present Danger, made it radioactive just by bringing up General Scott's woke record. Frank Gaffney.
You're being extremely generous, Steve. It is premature to say it's a victory. It may be just a stay of execution. But I do want to thank Senator Tuberville, because it would not have happened for sure without him standing in the breach and saying, we're not going to allow nominations to go through business as usual for Pentagon promotions as long as there is, well, in my words, a cultural Marxist takedown of the United States military taking place. And he's been specifically focused on this idea of really, I think, violating the law by funding abortion-related activities and expenses. But it applies to the larger problem that we've got. And Steve, you've spent a lot of time focused on this, and properly so, in the National Defense Authorization Act and more generally, what cultural Marxists are doing. And some call it woke, which simply confuses people as to what the problem is. It's about the takedown of this last standing institution. In the march through all of the institutions that people going back to the Frankfurt School.
Are you saying that a 4-star, hang on, whoa. You're saying a 4-star, I think, Chief of Staff of the Air Force is a cultural Marxist? Is that your theory of the case, Brother Gaffney?
My theory of the case is whether he is one, or whether he is simply a useful idiot for them, or he is otherwise an enabler. It doesn't really matter what he is doing. And he's done it to the Air Force, which, by the way, is now rated by the Heritage Foundation as very weak as a result of 3 years of his running the place. That would seem to me to be a disqualifier for a promotion if any were needed. But on top of it, Steve, as you know, what he has been doing very aggressively is promoting this whole diversity, inclusion, equity agenda. He's all about critical race theory. He wants quotas. Can't have too many white male pilots, for example. 46% is the right number. I mean, what's that about? That's not a meritocracy. That's not an approach that ensures you've got the best in the cockpit. And it's taking its toll on the Air Force. The question is, are we going going to entrust the entire United States military to a guy with such an agenda? I think not. But here's the point. There have been tremendous numbers of people, you've given me credit for it, but an awful lot of very important organizations and individuals have all come up on the net saying, we don't want General Brown. In fact, there's a website, rejectgeneralbrown.org, I commend people to. We're going to start a new coalition called Save America's Military to try to make sure that we do this as the first step towards blocking, hopefully, the rest of the woke agenda in the military.
Okay, so I thought that was very, very interesting, and I do want to clarify the point with the quotas. You know, why would you have a number on a quota? Maybe there's only 23% white males that could be the best pilots. Why does it have to be 47? Maybe it is 49% or 53%. Who knows? It doesn't matter. You know, why do you have to have the quota? You need to press for the best pilots that there is, no matter who they are as far as color and race goes. So, you know, that's really clear, and I think that's what he meant. What is that about? I think that's what he meant to when he said that. But the other thing is that he's like, are you telling me that a 4-star general could be detrimental, have detrimental intentions for the United States Air Force or Army or any command that they are over? And absolutely, General McConville is committed crimes against humanity. And he is an absolute criminal, and I'm saying that I'm just none of this could be happening without them greenlighting it. Our 4-star generals are so powerful; they have the entire military behind them. We're talking about fleets. We're talking about bombers. We're talking about the marksmen and the sharpshooters and the ADA, right? We're talking about very powerful weapons and all the secrets, the asymmetric warfare tactics. They have that behind them. And so that's why we give them so much respect, because we've given them so much power, and yet they have betrayed us. And clearly Richard's case shows that betrayal, because they don't have the best interest, or they're not authentic when it comes to what they mouth, that they care for. They have that obligation to care for our soldiers, the army of one, the be all you can be, the leave no soldier behind. That's just to recruit, and it's a lie, because in Richard's case, there has been so much wrongdoing, and we are still getting cover up, y'all. We are still getting cover up and retaliation, and absolute a mess, a total mess from these people that have everything. They should be lockstepping. They should find Richard. They could find Richard in 24 hours with their intel. But look, it seems that Team Find Richard Halliday's intel from within Fort Bliss is better than the generals, because he had to kick the can, right? He couldn't handle this. He couldn't handle us saying, we need you to do an independent investigation into the disappearance of our son, Richard Halliday, from Fort Bliss. He couldn't handle it. A 2-star general couldn't handle doing what was right. And I'm supposed to stay calm. Then what is he good for? To kick the can. fraud, waste, and abuse. Fraud, waste, and abuse, and to do harm instead of to do what's right. So that's really my message tonight. I really can't talk so much about this criminal complaint affidavit. It's so vile and vulgar, y'all. And the legal ramifications are so great because they didn't do anything about it. So they're culpable for what happened to Richard, among others. They didn't do anything about it. And so not only are they culpable for what happened to Richard, but they're culpable for what happened to these children and even their own family members. Leilani Hart, why isn't she arrested? Why isn't James Hart arrested? Why isn't First Lieutenant? Why did First Lieutenant Dallas Hart just walk away from the military? He should have had a court martial. Okay, I mean that is very clear that they're under a different law than what Richard was under. That's for sure, because for doing absolutely nothing, he was retaliated against, and he was threatened with 6 years in the brig. So I think that Thomas Kane should come clean. I think that Park University should come clean. I think that the CID and the JAG and the command, they need to come clean. And I think that the mortuary affairs needs to come clean. I think that Dr. Raskin Ortiz needs to come clean. I think the FBI needs to come clean. We'll start with Fort Bliss first. But don't, I haven't forgotten, and I'm wearing this hat. Is the FBI hiding the remains of my son? Because so says Nadal Baim, the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM. So I don't know how much evidence, we got the CCTV footage, we have the witness testimony on video, we have the name of the witness, we have a key witness about Leilani Hart and her intentions and what she knows about the murder of our son. We have her criminal complaint affidavit, which is a confession that implicates her for major crimes. We have Thomas Kane's confession or accusations against Fort Bliss Command and their lawlessness and their retaliatory actions against the key witness in Richard Halliday's case. And we have much more. We have Anthony Swafford saying that the smear campaign came from military police guard mount. We have the records that Leilani Hart was having an affair with Tavita Nusa, right? We have the connections with Clem Coward. We have the connections with JAG. We have the connections with Park University. I mean, this is not a cold case. This is not an inactive case. This is a very active case. So active that we're burning the midnight oil. So I hope that you all share this a lot everywhere. And let's do the right thing. Let's do the right thing for our service members, for our military, for our country, for Richard, for our witnesses. for whistleblowers. We need to have their back. So, and they've been retaliated against. So every case that Marlon Soto put his hand on, that Thomas Kane put his hand on, and others, needs to be revisited, reinvestigated. Because I think we're going to find a lot of cover up and a lot of lies there. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. God bless you. Anicia, thank you so much for your prayers. And Danielle, thank you for the prayers. And we appreciate it so much. And we will be back tomorrow. God bless you. And we love you for sticking with us for so long, for loving our country, for loving our service members. And we will be back tomorrow.